should be starting. Okay. I think we should be live. Hopefully my microphone is working. Yep, there we go. I think we should be live. Wasn't gonna live stream. Hopefully my microphone is working. But yep, there we go. No, I better turn my stream off. Let's make sure that this sounds good, which is probably gonna sound the best it is for now. Um, Hello everybody, and I was just watching Direct Weather stream, but his throat got hurt, and he's tired. Understandable. So I thought I would start streaming. I've been wanting to get back into doing this channel, but haven't known when I would. But now seems like a great time to get back into streaming and recording for this channel, and could not be better with a little severe weather event happening today. I've got um, two instances of blah blah blah. I got two instances of GRLevel 3 running, so we can watch both areas of storms at the same time. We got a couple tornado warnings going on. Well, we got three actually. We have one over here in Greenville, Missouri, and another one, sort of over McGee, Missouri, and then we got one more right here in Kentucky. Uh, it's gone. It's pretty much in between a bunch of towns, south of Dawson Springs, west of Cedar Bluff, or west of Crafton, east of Cedar Bluff, and north of Cerulean Springs. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, there's definitely some rotation on that storm. This storm has had the storm by McGee. You can follow my cursor around to see it. It has had pretty good circulation in the past. So this one, it seems to have been weakening, but it has had some strong rotation and looked like it was briefly going to drop a tornado. Still decent rotation there. Back over to the Kentucky storm. It seems to sort of be weakening here. Little bit less structure there. Um, but albeit still, still tornado warning, still some rotation. Seems to be weakening. A lot of these storms seem to be weakening. Let's see what other things we have going on. Up that's Nashville, Illinois. There's a severe thunderstorm warning. Uh, we'll use this radar to look at other storms, actually. Just because this one has been on that same radar station for a while. This one has not. So what's a good radar station for you? We'll use this one. Oh wait, this one isn't very good. Let's see what we got on this one. So velocity, it's out of the range. But okay, sorry about that. But what else do we have here? It looks like Mill Springs. there might be some rotation. It's a little far away from the radar site, but we can try. Yeah, that seems to be a little bit far. This is like a pretty blank radar area. No radars in this area. This radar hole. So we will have to wait until that storm gets a little bit closer. But there does seem to be a cell right there. 3 cells in a line right here. This one being the lead one. Probably going to have the biggest chance for dropping a tornado, since it's gonna be getting all the freshest air, at least, since there's no storms ahead of it. Should have the biggest chance for becoming the strongest, but we'll see on that one. Let's go back here. I'm going to go back to the other radar station over here, and we'll see how this storm is doing. That has a pretty ominous notch right there. Um, I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see that. Decent notch. Let's see. Velocity is looking like definitely rotation. Not as tight as it was earlier, but it is there. And same thing on here. Some rotation. Not as tight as earlier, but definitely there. So for now, we'll just have to wait that out. I think I'm at the wrong radar station, though. Let's use this one. So once again, looks to be the same story, except it's shifted a little bit. But that makes sense. This radar might have a little bit more accurate view. Maybe this one's a little close, but I would say this one's probably more accurate. It's not too close yet. So, yeah, let's go back over to Missouri, the Missouri side being the left side, Kentucky being on the right. I'll leave that. I'll zoom that out to right about here. Maybe I should put some text up on the screen. Let's see if I can figure that out. Oops, I am very good at typing. Okay, let's see. Did that show up? Hey, there it is. Kentucky. On that side. And we'll add another thing of text. Missouri. Or is this Illinois? Where are we in this storm? Missouri. We're still in Missouri. Oh, that has a hook, though. Look at that right there. That could be definitely some rotation. Let's look at the base velocity. Not as much rotation, but definitely a hook. Relative velocity does show there's some like broad rotation, tighter rotation, but definitely not as tight as it was earlier. Let me finish adding this text here. Okay, there we go. We're back. But once again, some broad rotation on both of these cells here. I'll look at the reflectivity for that one. You can see there is a bit of a notch here, but not too defined. But there seems to be, it could be a hook there since there is some rotation. Although the tornado warning did expire on this cell, so now it's just this other cell here and then this Kentucky storm that are left. If you want to see what warnings there are at the moment, you can look at the bottom right of the screen where it says active warnings, um, and then GRLevel 3. So we have 2 tornado warnings right now and a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings. But let's see here. What's this? Oh, just for a cell. This tornado report is old, so you can ignore that. Here, I'll get these lines off the screen. Which button does that? It's U. No, U. Yeah. So we don't have to see those. But let's check out this one's rotation again, just because in the past this one did have some pretty tight rotation. Does seem maybe to be tightening up a little bit since the last scan. We can check. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's possible. Here, let's look at. I'm gonna put this one. Actually, we'll look at that one in a minute. Base velocity here. Let's check that out. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's getting a little bit tighter on that one. So, the cell I think is the cell. One of these 2 cells have both had some tornado reports from them or funnel cloud reports. So we'll be watching these. I'll keep these up over on this monitor, but let's move over to Kentucky here and see how that's faring. So here, look at the storm relative velocity. It seems to be getting a bit close, but there's definitely some rotation. Let's look at the hook though. So well, this one doesn't really have that much of a hook anymore. We can check this radar though, because this one showed it a little better earlier. Maybe a hook there. In this region, on this radar at least, it's showing. Base velocity does definitely show some rotation on this radar. Um, Seems a bit broad, but there is some like right here seems to be the tightest area of rotation, tighter than these storms over in Missouri, but still not not super strong. But definitely want to keep an eye on this section right here because this has been seemingly tightening, or actually, yep, it seems to be have tightened over the last few scans. So for a tornado, I think the most imminent danger would be over here. Crofton is in the path, pretty much directly. It seems like. Yeah. So if you're anywhere between Mannington and what's this town? Kelly, Mannington and Kelly, Kentucky here. Definitely have your eyes out. There could be a possible tornado. We can actually look at the well, I can't say. I can't speak right now. It doesn't seem that there is a tornado on the ground. This would show if there's any debris. So if there was any debris here, this would show it as being blue, but it would most likely be surrounded by a bunch of red, and we do not see that right now. So there does not seem to be a tornado on the ground in this storm. No reports either, but it is sort of in the middle of nowhere. The storm relative velocity has tightened quite a bit since the last scan, or the last scan we looked at it at. Here's the one previously. We can see it has been strengthening and tightening. So I'm going to keep an eye out on that one right there. Base velocity, once again, that has definitely tightened in this new scan. We'll be getting an update here shortly. But yeah, this storm seems to be strengthening. And there seems to be a much stronger hook right there. That's almost textbook right there for a weaker hook. If we're going to see a tornado, it'd be right about here. So this tornado could be going right over Crofton here shortly in the next 10 or so minutes. Crofton is definitely right in the line of fire for this one. Very, pretty dangerous situation there. We can see that is definitely tight. Let's see if we can get an update. We should be getting one soon. Yep. Circulation. Oops. Let's see here. Maybe a little looser, but still strong. Strong rotation on that one. Relative velocity. Oh, that's pretty strong right there. You can see the red. It's now the circulation. Whatever icon is now red, which signifies it being stronger. Whereas this one in Missouri is yellow. I'll put this one on base velocity just so I can see if that one's circulation tightens, but I'm going to focus on this one near Crofton. But this is not a good situation. There could potentially be a tornado on the ground in this one. I would not say it's unlikely. There is no signature on the correlation. Wow, I can't talk. On CC, I'm just going to say, because I do not see any sort of signifiers, no blue dots in this region. Once again, we'll go back here to see how tight that circulation is. No update yet on the radar. Let's see what the hook looks like on this one. Yep, still a notch right there, I would say. A sort of hook type thing. It seems to have maybe this little cell on the back or little tail type thing that's sort of blocking it from looking like a textbook hook, but there's definitely some sort of embedded hook right there. A notch. An update should be coming here in just about like 30 seconds to a minute. Since GRLevel 3 says there's going to be an update down here. Oh, we did get the update. Most of the time it fails and has to retry every 15 seconds. And there's not much I can do about that. But let's see here. That seemed to have slightly weakened right there, but still pretty strong rotation. And it's going to be passing over Crofton, Kentucky, any time now. That is just north of Hopkinsville. Definitely be on the watch there. Let's see what the hook is looking like. Still defined notch right there. Might have actually gotten a little bit. Yeah, seems to have gotten a little bit more defined of a hook. But I think the possibility of this possible tornado here being embedded in rain is pretty high, especially if you're on the rear end. There's tons of precipitation right here. So let's get a look at the rotation once more. Actually, let's look at this rotation. And look at the previous scan. So the center of the rotation is pretty much, I would say that this tornado could be potentially going straight over Crofton, since radars are not 100% accurate where they position these, like these collisions or these intersects of the red and green are not perfect to where the tornado is, so it's just in this general area. So it could be going anywhere north, south, or directly over Crofton, but that median line right there puts it going directly over there. Let's make sure I'm actually saying the name right, which I think I am. Let's see. Make sure I actually got the most recent update. Not a good situation there. So this storm, let's look at the correlation coefficient. Almost forgot to keep on checking up with that. Doesn't seem to be any signatures of a debris ball, which is a good sign. But in the next coming scans, we'll be able to tell. Uh, National Weather Service has not put a confirmed tornado out. Let's see what the warning does say. Uh, we'll see. I think it's just radar indicated still. Oh, that's the old one. Still just radar indicated, not likely yet. Now it's going right over Crofton. It seems like that circulation has... It's pretty much stayed the same for the last few scans. Maybe a little bit less strong, but still pretty strong rotation there on that storm. Let's check the hook once more. Still defined. How big is the hail in this storm? 2 inches. So big hail. Actually, that's really big hail. Base velocity, once again. I won't need to use this one. Yeah, there's some pretty strong rotation in this storm. They updated the warning. Let's check that out. I'll put it in the middle of the screen here. So it still is capable of producing a tornado. No tornado likely in this storm, according to the National Weather Service yet, but they did extend the warning until, let's see here, until 8:30 Central Time. It is currently about 7:57 Central Time, so definitely they extended it. It was going to expire here in a few minutes, but that just extended it a little bit longer. That does not look great. That could... I don't want to say that that is a debris ball, but if we are going to see one, it would be right in this light green area. That could be signifying some small debris. What this map does here is it shows like what stuff is in the air and how large it is. So, and it's not the most accurate, especially the farther away you go, and depending on where you're at in the radar, it looks something like that. But generally, it's good practice for if you're surrounded by some red areas and there's some circulation, and the colors look more blue or maybe this green. It does signify a potential debris ball, which would signify a tornado being on the ground. But that doesn't seem to be the case yet, but we will keep checking on that as the storm is going right over Crofton about now. So if we are going to see any sort of... Oh, there's an update. And we'll check the correlation coefficient once more. And it seems that it needs to update still. There we go. There could potentially be a tornado. Um, a little signature for a potential debris ball right there. But still a little too early to tell, but that's not a great sign. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Because if we go back, you can see that it was just a little bit of a green, and now it's getting that slight blue hint to it. But this wouldn't be a strong tornado by any means. It seems that it would probably be weak, or it's going over just maybe some trees or something. So still a defined little notch right there, although it does seem to be a little bit less defined than earlier, but base velocity a little bit broader than earlier, a good sign, but it still is strong rotation. It's just not as tight as earlier. Here, seems to be the same story. Oops. Well, actually, we can do this. So, we'll watch the history of the storm. So, you can see it's moved. This storm has been going for quite a long time. I've been watching it since it crossed into Kentucky, and it's went through a few cycles of looking pretty tornadic. So, if any of the storms of today were going to drop a tornado, my bet is on this storm, which is why I am concentrating on it the most currently. Let's give a all right. So, no updates on that yet. Reflectivity, same thing. We'll keep an eye on this. A bunch of those severe thunderstorm warnings just expired, so uh, here we'll leave this one here since the update is coming in about 30 to 40 seconds, depending on if it updates instantly, and we'll go back over here and check on Missouri. Um, so since I've been talking about the Kentucky storm, the Missouri storm seems to have weakened quite a bit from what it was earlier. You can see this red being the red and the green, and where they intersect being the points of where there could be rotation, and that has been slowly decreasing, not as defined and bright. Uh, I'm going to put this one back on base velocity as well. Just as a comparison, you can see that the red here is bright, and if we went back a little bit, the it was pretty tight. Like the red and the green came like to a single point, signifying that tight rotation that we look for when there is a potential tornado or rotation or funnel cloud. Supercell, it signifies that there's stronger rotation depending on how tight this is. There's still definitely rotation here, but it is nowhere near as strong as it was earlier. But we can look at the relative velocity, and it seems to be showing the same story. Um, Generally weaker, as you can see here, that was much stronger than it is now. So this storm seems to be on a downtrend. Base velocity, oh, not the base velocity. We want to look at the reflectivity, which shows the precipitation. Um, Not much has changed on this front, though. Maybe a little bit less defined of a notch, sort of thing. But generally, a still having a supercell structure on that. Let's go back over to the Kentucky side of the of my screen so we can check this since we got an update. Once again, we're going to check the correlation coefficient, and good news that that debris ball was either debris or a false alarm, because it is gone now. So there was probably no storm, no tornado here. I mean, the rotation has most likely crossed over Crofton by now. It is now to the east of Crofton, so we will want to be. But it does seem to be tightening once again. Not as tight as earlier, but uh, there is a pretty strong rotation here still. Let's actually check on this radar station here. That shows a different story. Once again, luckily, this radar doesn't show any sort of correlation coefficient, but it does show a TVS, which signifies, well, it's just the radar saying that there is a possible tornado in this area. We can see how strong it is, and that seems to be a 6. So, slightly above average confidence from the radar on how strong the tornado could potentially be, or if there is a tornado here. Base velocity, once again, there is a nice little intersection point right here. Same story on the storm relative velocity, which takes into account where the storm is compared to the radar and gives us which direction the winds are moving compared to base velocity, which is a little bit less precise. But it's good to check both just to make sure that they're agreeing with each other. But good news for people in Crofton or people watching worried about people in Crofton. They seem to have gotten out of that without any major damage if there was a tornado, but most likely there was no tornado. But now, uh, in this new update that we just got while I was talking, there seems to have been a pretty large increase in strength, I would say, in the rotation. As you can see, this green has become greener, or more defined bright green. So it's good to be watching that. Let's look at the reflectivity, and that is a very defined hook shape right there. Um, it would be pretty rain wrapped if there was a tornado, so it'd be very hard to spot. But there is a very defined hook on this storm, so that is not a good sign for the next towns in the path. Speaking of the next towns in the path, Um, seems there's going to be a pretty big open area here, which is good news. That might give the storm a bit of time to weaken. But bad news, it also gives it time to strengthen until it hits Kirkmansville. So the next couple of towns in its path are Kirkmansville, Clifty, and has that allergy? Allegory, however you say that. Those are some towns in the path. Most likely going to be Kirkmansville and Clifty, but this one is not out of the picture if it does decide to turn a bit south, which it does actually seem to be doing. It has slowed down, it seems like. Or that might have been because I changed radars too. Let's look at the base velocity here. That's actually a decent sign for rotation right there. A nice intertwining of the reds and the greens here. Um, with that TVS. But until we get the next update, I will talk about also. Before I do that, actually, just want to say that there is no signatures of a debris ball on this radar, so there's likely no tornado on the ground. But I would say that the possibilities of a tornado dropping from this storm are quite imminent. It's pretty likely at this point. This is strong rotation, maybe a little bit broad, but there's definitely a good spot of rotation in here. A very defined hook echo on the storm. So we'll have to keep watching that over the next couple of minutes. But an update on the Missouri side of things. On this tornado warning, it looks like they're going to let this tornado warning expire unless they're just going to reuse it for this storm, which I don't think they will. Although there is actually still some circulation in these. It seems like a lot weaker, a lot more broad than earlier, but it is still there. There's one area over here in Brownwood. I think, yep, Brownwood, and another one just south of McGee and north of Puxico. There are two segments of rotation. That would be good to watch. Uh, let's see what else we have here. Look at the reflectivity. They did just make a severe thunderstorm warning on that. Let's read. They might still say a tornado warning. A tornado is likely. They do that sometimes on storms that might not have a imminent chance for dropping a tornado, but like it's not worthy of a tornado warning per se. But there's a chance there. But I don't. Oh, yep, tornado possible. So we don't want to set these storms out of our sight, but they definitely do not want to be the focus. However, here on the right, I think that might be a damaging tornado, confirmed tornado on the ground in Kentucky, in Christian County. It looks like. I don't know how long ago that happened. Hopefully, I didn't miss it. I did definitely miss it. So there was a confirmed tornado on the ground. I should change that so it's a little bit easier to notice. Here, let's change what the warning looks like. That's not the right. Where is it? Oh man, I do not know what I am doing. Ah, warning settings. I'm gonna change it to orange, just so it's very easy to tell. So yeah, there is a confirmed tornado on the ground in this Kentucky storm. Uh, so people in the path of the storm, Kirkmansville, Clifty, those seem to be the two towns immediately um, near this storm. There is a confirmed tornado on the ground. If anybody is watching or anybody knows anybody in these two towns, tell them to get the shelter. Since they are still out of the warning, the sirens are not going off there most likely, but they will be soon, and it's best to get in the shelter before that happens. Storm relative velocity, once again, a few areas of rotation does seem a bit broad, but it was definitely a bit more tight earlier, but it's still strong rotation here on this storm. Once again, just to repeat to make sure everybody's aware, there is a confirmed tornado on the ground here in Kentucky, near. The storm just passed over Crofton and is now heading towards Kirkmansville and Clifty. The rotation is strong, but relatively broad on the storm. Doesn't seem to be any debris ball at the moment, but it is in the middle of pretty much nowhere at the moment, so chances are we wouldn't really see a debris ball anyways. But there is a very defined hook on this storm still. It's a strong supercell. We've been watching this for the past couple of minutes. Corey Anderson, yes, there has been a couple tornado reports today. There's one right here that we're watching with a confirmed tornado on the ground. And then earlier in Missouri, I think there was one report of a funnel cloud or a tornado, but that was uh, over an hour ago. Let's see if we can get an update on the radar, which we have. Um, can't tell if this is sort of broke apart or not, so let's look at the rotation there. Actually, that might have gotten a bit stronger. Seems to be about the same. Storm relative velocity, once again, about the same. In Missouri. So that's on the other side of the screen, on the left side. Oh, a new tornado warning just popped up in Missouri. I don't know how long ago that was, but I did just look. Okay, so yeah, just this scan. So this is all about to move into Illinois or Kentucky. So unless you're in the southeastern corner of Missouri, you should be fine. But here in Jackson, Gordonville, Cape Girardeau, I think that's how you'd say it. There is a new tornado warning. We'll read up on that real quick. Real quick. So the one in Cape Girardeau, let's see. Just a radar indicated tornado. So no confirmed tornado, but we should be watching this storm now to see if a tornado will form. Let's actually get a look at the relative velocity here. Broad rotation, but let's actually get some previous scans. Actually, it looks like it was tighter earlier, but we will want to keep watching that. But thank you for saying that. Uh, well, as long in Kentucky, let's see. Well, good news for anybody in Kentucky. This rotation has broadened quite a bit. It looks a little bit less strong than earlier. If I go back a few scans, you can see it was a lot tighter, a lot more condensed into one small area. But bad news about it is that the broad rotation is still quite strong. So my guess would be that the storm is cycling. In Missouri, uh, about just a broad rotation, and these storms, they just let this tornado warning south here near Bell City, and advance. And they let that expire, so the threat of a tornado here at the moment is pretty low, but we will want to keep watching that since there is a bit of rotation near Brownwood. In Jackson, or near Jackson and Gordonville, that rotation did just strengthen a little bit here. So you will want to keep an eye on that. But it is still broad, so luckily there is no, I don't think there is a imminent tornado. In Kentucky, good thing that you just said that, because it seems that a report of a tornado from a trained spotter came in south of Crofton. This was probably a bit earlier. Let's see here. It says that tornado was witnessed by meteorologists just south of Crofton. A carport was destroyed and possible roof and sign damage. And the rotation seems to be tightening a little bit there. But if you're anywhere else in Kentucky besides this area, it should be pretty clear. Paducah. I remember where. Yeah, Paducah is here in Kentucky. So you're out of the area for now if you live in Paducah. Earlier this storm was over you, but for now, at least for the next 30 minutes or so, you should be okay. But I would keep watching, as these couple tornado warning storms are coming in this general direction, but they're still quite a bit away. But we'll move over to the other side of so the left side of the screen shows Missouri, if you're interested. But let's see here. A new tornado warning did just pop up here in advance. They did let this one expire, but the circulation did tighten again here by Brownwood. So, Jackson area, let's see. Um, Jackson area. The Jackson area's tornado, that has strengthened, but is still broad, I would say. But it is getting tighter. No confirmed tornado, and since it is over a town, if there is going to be a tornado, most likely it would get confirmed. So, lucky for anybody in Jackson right now. Be in your shelters and anybody in this area of Kentucky, so Kirkmansville or Clifty. Once again, this is a pretty isolated event here in Kentucky. This is like the only storm in the area. So if you're in Kirkmansville or Clifty or know anybody there, get into shelter. I would guess that the sirens will be going off here soon for you guys. Thank you for saying that, Sugar Cube and Corey Anderson. Means a lot. I haven't done some streaming in a while. I'm just getting back into it. Haven't actually recorded anything in a while. If you would like to, you can like the stream and try to get this out here to more people in this area. And hopefully they can see what their storms in their area. If you know anybody in these areas, you can tell them to watch my stream or somebody else's stream if you know of anybody, just to make sure that they are getting the most up-to-date information. Because are a few areas of potential tornadoes, and this storm here in Brownwood in advance has been tightening. The storm up here in Jackson. Thank you guys. That means a lot, especially coming from me, being a small YouTuber and streamer. It means a lot to see that people like what I do here. It's a good motivator to keep me going, to keep making these videos and streams. I will definitely keep doing them tomorrow, especially in those outbreaks. Or not outbreaks, but severe weather events. There should be the next coming days up until Thursday. So I will stream every day until Thursday. And I'll be sure to upload some videos for everybody on what severe weather stuff will be happening. Good news up here in Jackson. The rotation weakened a little bit, but did tighten. So sort of good and bad news. But luckily, it's weaker, even though it has tightened, and it is to the north of Jackson. So it's not going to go over the city center if there is a tornado, but no confirmed tornado there. Actually, I should make sure that I update the warning color just in case one of these storms does get updated. Same. So let's check over here in Kentucky once again. I'm gonna use the other scan. Oh, well, that actually didn't change very much at all. A very defined hook, though. So, signifier of a strong storm. This storm could definitely drop another tornado soon. I don't think there's a tornado on the ground at the moment in Kentucky, because this is pretty broad. Actually, I'm going to take everything I just said about here in Kentucky back. This could be a debris ball. I don't want to say it is, but that is in the correct area. We are getting really close to the radar station. That's why I don't want to say it's certain. Because that there could not be a tornado here. It could just be some radar interference, but it is in the correct area. So Kirkmansville, oh, they should be updating the warning because I don't think the sirens would be going off in Kirkmansville right now, since there's no warning over their town. And this tornado, if there is one on the ground, it is going to be hitting there like soon. Like it could be within the next few minutes. It could be right over Kirkmansville. So once again, if you know anybody in Kirkmansville or Clifty, make sure you text them, tell them to get to shelter. If not, you can like the stream and let them know to, and hopefully get this out there to anybody who could be potentially in these areas of Missouri or Kentucky. Let's see here. What was I going to do? Base velocity once again. Look at this. Okay, so the hook has sort of recoalesced, I would say. If we go back to the previous scan, you can see it was a little bit more messy. It wasn't as well defined, even though there is still very obviously a hook here. It was not greatly defined, but now you can see there is a very defined hook with a large gap here. If there is a tornado, it would be right here. Actually, seeing this red circle isn't a good sign for this either. There is very likely a tornado on the ground outside of the. Okay, they did update the warning. Here, it does not say a confirmed tornado, but it does say a radar indicated tornado. It does not say that a tornado is likely on the ground, but for safety wise, I would advise that there is one on the ground right now, just because of all the signs and how strong that hook echo is, and how there could be a potential debris ball right here, being this blue surrounded by the red and the green. Um, that doesn't mean like all of this is debris here. It's just for its circumstances, it's a good sign that there could potentially be a debris ball. It is a little big, I would say, but uh, I'm not going to let that taint my judgment. Um, but yes, I'll re-update on Paducah once again. He should be, your boyfriend should be okay for now at least. The tornado watch is just saying that the tornado watch is over a pretty large area. It's over Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas, and it's just saying that the conditions are are there for a tornado, for a storm to produce a tornado. But it does not mean that you will, if you're in that tornado watch, that you will even see a thunderstorm. It's just saying that if a thunderstorm happens, there is a chance. But for now, uh, all the tornado one storms are pretty far away from Paducah, so it should be good. Tennessee is clear as of right now, and there's like no thunderstorms here, luckily. So Tennessee is in the clear. Most of Kentucky's in the clear. Really, the only areas of Kentucky that I would say are in any immediate danger, once again, Kirkmansville and Clifty, and now Dunmore is in this tornado warning, and they extended it for quite a long way, so they're definitely expecting this storm to track quite a bit longer now. They will be letting this confirmed tornado warning expire, so if there are any spotters on this storm, they are not reporting any tornadoes or not seeing any, so that's good news, at least. But it is nighttime, or at least the sun is going down if it's not dark already, so visibility would not be the greatest for any people viewing a tornado, any spotters or chasers. But there is okay, so an update on this storm here. The radar is now a bit more confident in there being a tornado in the circulation here. This little purple triangle here is it's called a TVS, which is, I don't know what it stands for because I forgot, but I would just explain it as it shows it's the radar's way of saying that there could potentially be a tornado on the ground, or there's strong rotation in this area, and there's a little number in there. It's hard to read because it's a very small icon, and it doesn't really help zooming in because it gets smaller. But right now it is a 3, so it's not that confident. Earlier there was a 5 and a 6, so it's not incredibly confident in there being a tornado in this area, but it's saying that it's possible. We'll look at the correlation coefficient once more here, and it seems like actually, let's look at the base reflectivity. And once again, just want to check the correlation. Oops, that's not it. So I don't think there's a debris ball at the moment. I'm going to guess that this was a false alarm right here for debris balls, but it's always best to be safe rather than just to risk not saying something. Uh, Here, let's look at base reflectivity. So, yes, over here in Paducah, there are some weaker thunderstorms. Here, we'll actually move the radar. There are some weaker thunderstorms up to the north of Paducah, but none of them are anything severe. No risk of tornadoes in these. Uh, so luckily, that should be good news. For anybody in this region of Kentucky, so Paducah, or pretty much just anywhere in western Kentucky at the moment, or far western Kentucky, you should be out of the risk zone for any storms. Let's get an update on this storm. Again, just since it is the most imminent danger here, I'm making sure I'm keeping a broad coverage on all these areas. So if you're ever curious on how the storms are looking in Missouri, just once again, just to repeat myself, the left side of the screen shows the radar in Missouri, and the right side shows the radar in Kentucky. And you can hopefully see your town name if you're in any of these areas, or some towns around you if you live in a small town. But let's get a update on this storm. So an update should be coming out here shortly for the Kentucky storm. And then I will give a statement on what's going on. So let's see here. Does seem to be an issue getting the update at the moment. The rotation, I'll just start right now. The rotation is still broad, I would say, but the hook on this storm is incredibly well defined. I'm actually going to save this image. So yeah, we'll just save that. Because that is one of the best defined hooks I've seen this year, and today, subsequently. There is if you're wondering what we mean by hook, so a hook is pretty much what it says. You can look at the storm on the radar, and if it looks somewhat like a fish hook, so you can see this. I'll use my mouse to sort of track it here. This sort of purple line and red line that sort of arcs around here is what would be a hook, and the full name is a hook echo. Sometimes they get a little embedded and they're more of a notch type shape, but generally, uh, that's what we mean. What whether people mean when they say a hook is just this sort of shape. Uh, yeah, the Crofton tornado. There was a report over here earlier. This is the storm currently. So at the moment, the tornado seems to have lifted, luckily, but there's still rotation, a very well defined hook on this storm. So it's still a strong thunderstorm, still dangerous. They have extended this warning out even further, so that means people at the National Weather Service are really expecting this storm to last quite a bit. I will use a comparison over here in Missouri. These storms haven't had the strongest rotation, and now they're sort of coalescing into one line. So you can see that the tornado warnings here are quite small, and that's because they're not really expecting these tornadoes to go very far or these warnings to be reliable, I would say. There's not much imminent risk, while over here in Kentucky, there's quite an imminent risk. The storm is very strong, and we can see it strengthening or at least lasting quite a bit longer. Um, the good news about today, I would like to say, is that generally these storms have not really been widespread. It's been relatively isolated, for any strong thunderstorms, but they do exist. And if you live anywhere in this southern Illinois, west or eastern Missouri, western Kentucky area, I would still be on the eye out. Does not mean that you're in imminent danger, but it just is that there are possibly some thunderstorms moving into that area. And if you do go under a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, do not go outside and try to take pictures or see the thunderstorm or the tornado before going to shelter, because that it at nighttime and in the rain and with the thunder and with houses and trees, if you're in a town, it can be very hard to see a tornado. I'm going to use the storm over here in Kentucky. It still has that hook you can see, but now the precipitation has sort of wrapped around. So whereas there was this area of lighter rain, here it is now starting to sort of coalesce into more of one ball of rain with a hook, which means that this tornado would be rain wrapped and very difficult to see, especially with the sun going down or it being nighttime. And so going outside in these types of situations or getting in your car and trying to see these tornadoes, unless you are very confident in what you're doing, is a very dangerous situation to be in. So do not try to do that. Just if you get under a tornado warning and you hear the sirens going off, just get to your basement or somewhere into an interior room in your house. Or if you don't have a safe place to go, maybe a neighbor or a friend nearby has a place you can take shelter in. But generally, a good idea is a bathroom or an interior bathroom or closet or under your stairs in the basement is a one of the strongest structural places. Actually, okay, no, we're good. I thought there was a new tornado warning, but it's just because there's two in this area for the same storm. But let's get back to updating on the storm since I got the what to do when there is a tornado out of the way or any strong thunderstorm. Uh, the rotation here has consistently over the past I would say 10 minutes has continued to stay broad but strong. So the chances of a tornado dropping here are still there, but is there a tornado on the ground at the moment? No. at least as far as we can tell. If there was a tornado, it would probably be weak or brief, since there is not really any signs of it here on the radar of there being a tornado, and no spotters. Since there is a spotter in this area, it seems, since they did report a tornado back at Crofton, they haven't seen anything. If they're still chasing the storm, that is. So we want to keep watching this storm here. But since we've been focusing on Kentucky, and there are still some tornado warnings here in Missouri that are about to progress into Illinois, or southern Illinois, I'll give a brief update on what's going on in these storms. So here, where these pink and light green sort of intertwining uh, colors here, it would signify some broad rotation. But if you compare it to the right side of the screen, which shows the Kentucky storm, where there's some pretty defined greens and pinks, it is quite different. You can tell that the rotation here in Missouri is quite weak and broad, and that is there a imminent tornado threat over here? Probably not. But there is a chance for a tornado to drop down anytime soon. But yes, Cape Girardeau is still in a tornado warning. However, the rotation here is is very broad now. It was much stronger earlier, and it is now very broad, and it seems to have been weakening consistently. So my guesses are that this tornado warning is going to expire when its time runs out, which should be within the next less than 10 minutes from now. This tornado warning will expire, and unless they extend it, you are most likely out of the zone for any sorts of tornadoes. But here down in Oron, Benton, Morley, this rotation, while broad, it is still quite a bit stronger than this one up to the north. So I would not say this one is completely out of the zone for a another tornado, but at the moment the rotation is broad, so it should not be a imminent threat. However, from all the rain, you can now see there's a green warning here that stretches a pretty large distance. Let's actually look at the precipitation here. So here now there's a flash flood warning, so they must be getting very heavy rain from these storms, and the National Weather Service found it fit to say that that it's raining heavy enough for a flash flood warning. So if you live down here in the area stretching from Benton, or I am not even going to say Dialstadt, Blodgett. Wow, these are some difficult names to pronounce. Haywood City, Bell City, which is currently getting the heaviest rain. Uh, if you're going to go out driving, be very careful. Do not drive through anything that looks like it could be a deep puddle. Be very careful. There could be some isolated areas with deep water on the roads. Up north here in Cape Girardeau, yep, they're definitely going to let this tornado warning expire. So if you're in Cape Girardeau, you're most likely out of the threat zone for any tornadoes. Good news is for tornadoes, at least, the storm has sort of coalesced into one solid line. So the threat for any tornadoes now are low. For any strong tornadoes are very low. And your biggest threat now would be straight line winds, which are still very dangerous, but it should be a lot less dangerous than a tornado. So just don't try to go out and drive in this. Try to get home if you don't do any non-essential driving. Just try to stay in your home, and you should be okay. We'll move over back to the Kentucky storm, which is on the right side of the screen. And since we last checked in over on this one, the rotation there has tightened and gotten quite a bit stronger. Let's look at, and the same story on this radar view. However, the hook seems to have sort of embedded. So it's either weakened or there's now this like secondary storm cell right here that is sort of wrapping the whole storm and tornado area in rain, which would make this very dangerous. It's going to make it very difficult to spot a tornado in this area. So once again, let's get some areas, some warnings for any places that are in immediate threat. We have been talking about this here for a while. If you're in Clifty, hopefully you're in shelter by now, but the storm should be passing over you soon. Kirkmansville, you were in the threat earlier, but now it should be out of your area. Clifty, should now be moving out of your area. So now the two towns that are in the most immediate threat would be Dunmore and Lewisburg, and my bet would be on Lewisburg being in the most danger. But in between these towns, I would definitely be watching out if you're driving in between those towns, because this tornado or this tornado warned storm, where the tornado would be, we can look here on the relative velocity. A tornado, if it were to be here, would be in this general region where my cursor is going around. Actually, where this yellow or this green triangle is, it would actually probably be close to where a tornado would be, and it's moving to the east, so it's going to go somewhere between these two towns, or maybe a little bit north or south of one of these towns, just depending on what the storm decides to do. Let's look at the base velocity. Um, this doesn't show as good of a picture of the rotation as this does. This shows it being a lot stronger. This is a lot more reliable as well, so we'll keep using this map. On the reflectivity, this storm is now, I would say, starting to lose some of its shape, its figure. If we go back a few scans, you can see that it had a very defined hook shape, which signifies it having some very strong rotation. So there's a couple things that could be happening. Uh, the best situation would be that the rotation is weakening. It is becoming more of a wind and rain threat. The worst case scenario is that the storm is becoming more high precipitation with heavier rain, and it would make a potential tornado much harder to spot, which is all the more reason that if you're in Dunmore or Lewisburg, that you should be getting to shelter right now, because the likelihood of anybody seeing a tornado on the ground is low, and the radar is not a perfect say for if there's a tornado on the ground. There are indicators, but nothing beats a person spotting it, a trained spotter that knows what they're looking for, seeing a tornado and calling it in. And precipitation, a rain wrapped tornado, makes it much harder to see. So, if you're in Dunmore or Lewisburg or know anybody in these areas, uh, tell them to get to shelter, or you get to shelter, because they are in pretty big danger, I would say. Um, on this new scan that just came in, the hook seems to have gotten more defined once again. So if we draw a line from this purple circle up here, left, down, and then right, you can see that it forms a sort of C shape or a fish hook type shape, and that signifies strong rotation. Uh, and if we check the velocity map, which shows which direction the winds are moving, the winds have tightened up quite a bit. At least they're closer together, maybe a little bit broader. But there's still there's still very strong rotation over a very large area, and the storm seems to be moving east, but a little bit south, so east southeast. So if you're in Lewisburg, especially, get to shelter because this storm and this area of rotation is heading right in this general direction. Let's check the base velocity to get the same picture. This shows that the strongest point of rotation is a little bit up more north, but generally this area right here, a tornado could drop down over this very large area. And pretty soon, if it was going to happen, uh, since there's this very defined hook, this storm has a history of dropping a tornado. Back here quite a bit in Crofton, when the storm was there, it did at one point produce a brief tornado that did actually deal some damage. So this storm producing another tornado is not completely out of the question, especially with a storm structure like this. And that rotation seems to be tightening up just a little bit now. In this scan, it's definitely tightened up, actually, down here in the south area. We'll check the base velocity. It's showing a similar picture. So right down here in this, right over this red uh, arrow circle, that would show the radars indicating rotation, and or the radars predicting rotation, and we are also able to see reliably that it is pretty much right, dead on where that tight area of rotation is. Let's check the correlation coefficient. Um, does not seem to be any signs of any debris, which is a good thing. That means that there's not likely a tornado on the ground at the moment, or there's at least no signifying of any debris being shot in the air. So if we ever see any sort of debris ball signature, which it would be much easier to explain what that is when there is one. So if we see one, then I will make sure to call it out. But as of right now, I'm not seeing any signifying indicators of a debris ball, which is a good sign that there is no tornado on the ground or no strong tornado. So, actually, they seem to have actually extended a warning over here in Missouri. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, move over to the left side of the stream, and explain what's going on over here. And let's see what's actually going on. Actually, okay, so that's not a great sign here. So here by Benton and Lambert, there's a area of tight rotation. It's pretty strong too. Let's actually see what the warning has on it. Just a radar indicated storm. They're not saying a likely radar indicated, which is a good sign. But we do want to keep a, a close eye out. Luckily, the rotation did just weaken on the scan. But if you're in Benton or Lambert, hopefully you yielded the tornado watch or tornado warning here. And there should definitely have been sirens going on for quite a bit. So, um, excuse me. So you should be there is possibly a tornado here. Actually, we can look at the correlation coefficient and double check here. So it doesn't seem that there's one on the ground, but there is that rotation. There's that chance that one could happen at any moment. So just for safekeeping, make sure you're in your basement in a safe area. And we'll keep an eye out on this, and we'll go back over here to Kentucky to make sure that everything here's okay. So on this storm seems to be tightening its rotation, which is not a good sign with how strong this rotation is. Um, all being said though, it did just get broader. But I would definitely be on the lookout here. This is some very strong rotation here in Kentucky, by Lewisburg and Dunmore, and those places are an immediate threats. If you know anybody there, make sure they get to shelter, because there is some strong yet broad rotation, but this could tighten at any minute and produce a tornado. And the storm, once again, for anybody who just got here, has in the past produced a tornado, so it's not completely out of the question that it could do it again. We can look at the base reflectivity, and the hook is not as well defined. It is still there, though. So my guesses would be that the storm is cycling or recycling. And what that means is that the storm is going through its phase of strengthening and then and then weakening and then strengthening. And right now we're in that weakening phase, in between strength. But we'll see if it will actually strengthen again or if it will be on this downtrend of weakening. We are moving into the night though, and the energy should start weakening. Uh, However, or the energy in the region should start weakening, so the chances of any new storms forming are small. The bad thing about this storm in Kentucky, though, is that it is pretty much the only storm in its area. There are a few weak cells to the north and to the south, but it is moving into areas that have not seen any storms, meaning that there's plenty of energy to go around. And since this is the only storm in the area, it's basically going to get all of it to itself. Which is the difference, which over here in Missouri, where there's this entire line of thunderstorms here, which is sort of bowing out, which I can explain what that means in a second. There's been other storms in this region all day. It's not going to have as much energy, and especially since there's a bunch of storms combating for that energy, which ones will take it, and it's going to generally mean that it's going to weaken this line of storms. But there is a tornado warning here still, so let's check that out. The rotation is actually pretty strong and tight here. But that being said, there doesn't seem to be any tornado on the ground. It would have just sort of went over Benton or Lambert, and if there was a tornado on the ground, a strong one at least, we would have easily seen it. So now, the next places that are in the area of danger here would be Commerce, and coming up later would be Olive Branch and Miller City, Illinois. So this storm will be moving out of Missouri and yeah, just Missouri. This storm will be moving out of Missouri into Illinois shortly, which would then move it into Kentucky, but that is quite a bit away. And since the storm is part of a line, the chances of a tornado, a strong tornado at the most of it, forming in here is nowhere near as big as it is over here in Kentucky. I'm just going to change something over here so I can make sure I can see. But I'll continue talking about over here in Missouri. So let's talk about the main threat with this storm system at the moment, with this whole line of storms. So earlier I said that this storm was bowing out, which meant that it's taking up this bow shape, which is a good signifier for strong winds. So your main threat, if you're in the path of this storm, would be some strong winds, which we can actually read up on this severe thunderstorm warning to see how strong the winds might be. So we're seeing this storm is moving relatively fast too, so it's moving at about 30 miles per hour east with a 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and half-dollar sized hail. So decently big hail in this storm, high wind gusts, and those could be getting stronger, especially with the storm bowing out as it is. So, and I would say that this is mainly concentrated in the south section of the storm, but the northern section of the storm is not out of the question, but there is no warnings here. They did extend or no, this is the same. There's still a flash flood warning for this area as well. So there's heavy rains, hail, some strong wind gusts here, and a potential weak tornado could form here. If there was going to be one, I would guess it would be brief. However, there is this rotation is tightening actually quite a bit here, so I will. It's centered on this yellow circle right here that I'm moving my cursor around. In this general area is where a tornado would be, so we'll want to keep watching that. It has been going through little bit of strengthening over the past few minutes, so I'll keep an eye out on that. Want to give an update over here in Kentucky with some good news. It seems like this storm is sort of weakening, at least in the sense of rotation. This rotation, while still strong, is much broader and still much weaker than it was earlier. My guess now is that the main damage of the storm is going to be high winds, at least for the immediate future. But we definitely want to keep an eye on it because it could just be recycling, as I said earlier. And we want to make sure that we keep an eye out to make sure that the storm doesn't become stronger again and then drop another tornado like it did earlier over here in Crofton. But this has been a long track supercell. And what that is it's been a supercell with rotation for a long time now. At least I started watching it over here in Missouri, and it has moved up through Missouri, through Paducah, and all the way to this point. So the storm has a history of lasting a while and going through these cycles of strengthening and weakening. And to say that it could again is not out of the question, especially being the only storm in this area. It's far ahead of this line of thunderstorms over here and all these other thunderstorms to the north in north of Paducah in Illinois and over Marion, Providence, and Madisonville, Kentucky, which are all weaker thunderstorms, but they can still eat up energy from these bigger thunderstorms. So let's get a quick check on the rotation. And with this scan, it has weakened again. So that is a good sign. Hopefully, the storm is actually, I would say at the moment, less dangerous than the storm over here in Missouri. So I'm going to shift my focus over here in Benton and Commerce and Miller City, since this storm has some tight rotation, much tighter than it is over here, and it's pretty strong. So it's strong, tight rotation. We'll get a look at correlation coefficient. No debris ball, so no tornado on the ground, it seems at the moment that we can tell. The warning is just for radar indicated rotation, so it's not no spotters have spotted anything. If there are any, no law enforcement has seen any sort of tornado or forming tornadoes. Uh at the moment, so far today, we haven't seen any strong tornadoes. We've only seen one weak funnel clouder tornado quite a while ago in, I think it was near Van Buren or Eminence, Missouri. Those places are completely out of danger at the moment, but I thought it would be worth saying that there was one earlier. And then just a little while ago, about 20 minutes ago, in Crofton, Kentucky, which did do some damage, was to a carport and some roof and signs. So not a very strong tornado, but there was a tornado that did some damage. Luckily, it moved over mostly rural fields. It seems to have gone south of any towns, which is a good sign. And over here, so far, all we're seeing is just a weak bit of circulation. Or not a weak bit of circulation, but just circulation for now. No tornado signatures or anything, no TVS. If you weren't here earlier to know what a TVS is, it's basically the radar's way of saying that, hey, I think there could be a tornado here. And then it has a little number that signifies how confident it is in there being a tornado in that area. And we don't see any of that. See any of that. The radar is just saying that, hey, with this little yellow circle, that there is some rotation in this area, which I can agree with since I can see with this pink and this green so close to each other how bright the pink and the green is, and with what the storm itself looks like, that it's pretty much it's accurate. It's right on its rotation. So the only reason why I'm not saying that the storm is going to lose its strength is because even though it is in this line, it is sort of, you might be able to tell that there's a sort of notch, it like bends, it kinks here in the line. This would be a squall line. If you've ever heard that used before, it's basically just a uh bleh, 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 just a line of thunderstorms, which usually brings some hail and strong straight line winds. But with these bends, there's a chance of a tornado. Location: we are currently looking at the storm in Benton, Missouri, but it is going to be moving over into Commerce, Missouri, and Miller City, Missouri. Actually, I was looking at an old scan. My bad. But Miller City now, it's moving into southern Illinois. So, but we are watching the storm here in Miller City, Commerce, and Olive Branch. We can actually check the circulation here. Still, uh, pretty. It's strong but broad. It's broadened quite a bit since we last were able to check it. So, um, that's a good sign. But we want to keep an eye out on it. They should be updating this tornado warning soon, and if they don't, if the National Weather Service doesn't update this tornado warning, then it's a good sign that they're confident in the storm not putting down a tornado. However, even if it doesn't continue, I'm going to keep watching it since there is still rotation. So we just want to make sure that just because the tornado warning disappears, that doesn't mean that the threat for a tornado didn't disappear. So let's move over to Kentucky again, just to make sure that we're keeping an eye out on this storm. So what's going on over here? As we've seen over the last few minutes, just some weakening rotation. But there's still a hook if we look here. We can see if I follow my cursor, there's like a C shape here, or it's more of like a V, a sideways V shape, but still a bit of a hook, but it is not as defined and strong as it was earlier. So that is a good sign for that. And it looks like the threat of a tornado in this storm, at least in Kentucky, which is north of Lewisburg, between Sugar Grove and Dunmore and Lewisburg, has pretty much they are the National Weather Service is going to let this expire, this tornado warning expire. So the threat for a tornado in this area at the moment uh is dissipating, I would say. So unless the National Weather Service brings one back or we see some re-strengthening rotation, the biggest threat here would be uh wind, rain, and hail. We can actually get a check on that. So the hail in this storm is actually pretty large, 1.75 inches, 1 3/4 inches here in Kentucky. Um, it has previously produced a tornado. However, the threat for that seems small at the moment, which is good because it is going to be moving into a more populated area once it passes Sugar Grove and Jasper. it will be moving into Memphis Junction and Bowling Green and Plum Springs, which we can tell on the map are bigger cities. Some some roads congregate in this area, so uh, it's a good sign that this tornado warning and the rotation is dissipating. But we will want to keep a watch on it since it still does have a bit of a hook. So over here on the left side of the screen in Missouri, we can see that they added a severe thunderstorm warning here for this entire, oops, that's not the right, for this entire line of thunderstorms at this point, which goes along with what I've been saying with this Boeing line of thunderstorms here, that some high winds, hail, and rain is your biggest threat. The tornado warning seems like they're going to let it expire as of right now since they haven't added a new one here. And they did add this warning, the severe thunderstorm warning. Chances are that they're going to let this storm expire. So, or this tornado warning expire. So now, if you are in this region of, I would say it's a stretch from New Grand Chain south down to Wyatt or Bradwell, Kentucky. So once again, New Grand Chain, Missouri, south to Bradwell or Arlington, Kentucky. Your main threat at the moment is going to be high winds, rain, and hail, with potentially a flash flooding threat, since there's a flash flood warning in this zone. Now I want to talk about a couple things now. There's this new cell, which is sort of out of the range of any of the radars. It's in this sort of radar hole. It seems to be getting some rotation. So as this moves a bit closer, we will want to keep watching it. It does have a severe thunderstorm warning. This is in Naylor, Missouri, Neelyville, Missouri, moving into Harville, Missouri, Brosley, Quillen, Missouri. All those places are going to be seeing potentially some winds. We will want to keep watching it though for a potential rotation. But since it's so far away from any of these radar stations at the moment, you can see that it looks pretty weird here on the radar, and that is just because it's having a hard time seeing the storm so far away. So we want to keep an eye out on that. Moving back over to the right side of the screen, over here in Jasper and Sugar Grove, Kentucky, which are now in the path of the storm, I would like to say that the storm's hook is sort of forming. It's regaining some of its nicer structure. So we can see here, if we look at the previous scan, it was sort of messy here. It's not as well defined. And now if we move here, there's a nice C shape and a V shape up at the north and a C shape down at the south, which is a signature of a hook echo. But let's see if it has the rotation, which it does. So the rotation seems to be re-strengthening here. So the storm was cycling throughout this area. We want to keep an eye out now, especially just because this storm is moving into a more populated area of Memphis Junction and Bowling Green and Plum Springs. The storm is also moving in that direction, and so is that rotation area. So we want to keep an eye out. It's still a ways out from those areas, but if you are in those areas or know anybody in these areas of Kentucky, which is Memphis Junction, Bowling Green, and Plum Springs, make sure you give them a call or text them and let them know that there is a storm coming that could potentially bring a tornado, but at least will bring some rain, some heavy wind, and maybe some hail. But we will have to wait a little bit just to see if this will bring, if this rotation will strengthen and coalesce more into a what would be more of a tornado indicator, or if it will weaken again. But we don't really know. The next update of the radar should be coming out in just a few seconds. Let's see if we can get it to update here. There we go. So let's check that storm relative velocity once again, and that is some tight rotation right here. Some strong and some tight rotation, which it seems to have strengthened since the last scan, or at least tightened into this little area right here. Not sure what the center point would be. It's either up here, where my cursor is going around, or a little bit farther south, down by this darker red area. Let's check the base reflectivity again. Still a very defined hook right here, a C shape. And the tornado would be in this area of the storm, or a possible tornado would be in this area of the storm. So it looks like as of right now, it's going to go north of Gasper and south of Sugar Grove. Sugar Grove's main threat right now is this pink and this red, which is going to be some heavy rain, some wind and hail and lightning. But tornado threat for you guys up here in Sugar Grove is pretty low. But if there is a tornado warning that is extended here, which I don't think is completely out of the question yet, make sure you get to shelter anyways, just to be safe. Let's see what else we got going on here. You can look at the correlation coefficient. That is probably not anything. That's a little big. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this. Just to check that again, just so anybody who just joined in can see some pretty strong and tight rotation here in Kentucky, south of Sugar Grove, north of Gasper. That's going to be heading into Plum Springs, Bowling Green, and Memphis Junction, Kentucky. If you're wondering where that is in Kentucky, let's turn off the radar and the warnings real quick. Which button does that? That's not it. I'm still a little bit new to this program. Well, anyways, here's Kentucky, and it's in the central southern region of Kentucky at the moment. Let's move back in. Should be getting an update here shortly. There's an update. First, let's check the reflectivity. Uh, so some good news. Now, the storm did strengthen briefly, but it now seems to be losing its organization. The hook has lost some of its well-definedness. If we go back a few scans, that C was very nice and arc, not much wavering in it. But now we can see that another cell is moving in, which is probably disrupting the storm. And a couple things could happen with this new storm, smaller storm cell moving in from the south. It could either weaken the storm and or strengthen the storm, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. There's no way that we can predict what will happen. It will just have to We'll just have to wait a few minutes and see what ends up happening there. The National Weather Service has not extended a tornado warning. Actually, they just let it expire. So that's good news for anybody here in Kentucky. The rotation has weakened. It still is there, but it's definitely not as strong as it was just a few minutes ago. So, once again, we'll have to keep an eye out. The storm has been going on for hours at this point. It has dropped one weak tornado here back in Crofton that did a little bit of damage, a little bit of confirmed damage even. That a spotter was able to see. It did some carport damage, and this storm has went on since back here in Paducah and in Missouri hours ago, and it has had that supercell and strong storm structure pretty much its entire lifespan. So it'll be good to keep watching this because it could once again just go through a a cycle. However, that storm that we were watching a little bit ago, like a few minutes ago, just got a tornado warning here in Missouri. So let's see. in Naylor, Missouri, Neelyville, Missouri, uh, Harville, Missouri, and Quillen, Missouri, and Brosley, Missouri. Those that is not a great sign. Even though this is far away from any radar stations, it is going to be moving closer to this one over here in Kentucky. So it will be good to keep watching it here. But we can still see this green and this pink, and being this far away, this is pretty tight rotation as far as we can see. I'm just gonna make sure that we can keep watching this storm here in Kentucky. But if it weakens to enough, then I'll move this radar somewhere else. Finally, this storm up here to the north, this tornado warning expired. The storm's been out of that area for a while. But if you're in Benton, Missouri, or City, Missouri, you should be in the clear at the moment. And now this line of storms is going to be moving into Illinois and Kentucky, which will pretty much just bring hail and strong winds. But we're going to move back down here to this tornado warning storm to make sure that we're getting the most recent updates here. Looks pretty much the same as earlier, just some tight, strong rotation here. I will be ending the stream in probably about 20 minutes. I'm getting a little bit tired. My throat is getting sore since I've been talking about an hour and 40 minutes straight. And the night should be dying down since it's getting later. It is now 9:16 p.m. Central Time, which is it's a good sign that the storms are also going to end up dying down with it. The prime time for thunderstorms is around 5 to 8 p.m. And now that we're getting out of that region, there's not much new energy in this region, especially with how many storms have moved through here in the past. So we want to keep an eye on this storm. But I feel that the chances of this storm here in southern Missouri, near Neelyville and Harville and Naylor, does not have a big chance of producing any strong tornadoes. However, we do want to keep an eye on it, of course, because anything can happen with weather. It's very hard to predict exactly what will happen, but all the signs point to this storm not becoming too strong. And as it moves a bit closer to the radar station, we should be able to get a better view of the storm. So let's go back to the radar view, just so we can see what the storm looks like itself. It is pretty far away, so it is hard to see exactly what the storm looks like. We can't really point out any specific like hook echoes or tornado signatures. So as of right now, it's just this little supercell type structure, this little thunderstorm structure. However, the National Weather Service and we can see some rotation here in this area, and that's why they felt it worthy to give the storm a tornado warning. So this storm will be moving into Vegas, Quillen, and Brosley here shortly. Um, so your dude up here in central Kentucky went live and said it was going to ramp up after midnight. It is possible that it could ramp up with some thunderstorms. I don't think your chances for tornadoes will be very high or any really strong severe thunderstorms, but I think that this storm here in that's currently in just Illinois and far western Kentucky is going to move into your area, so you will end up getting some pretty heavy rains, maybe some high winds and some hail. But the chances of any tornadoes, I would say, are small, if none, past midnight. However, the tornado watch does go until I think it was 2 a.m. I can double check on that right now. But if I remember correctly, let me double check, until 1 a.m. So the tornado watch goes until 1 a.m. So once you get past midnight into the 1 a.m. area, the threat for tornadoes should drastically decrease, if not disappear completely, especially with these storms condensing into just a solid line. That even decreases the chances for tornadoes even further. So that's good news for everybody in Kentucky. The only tornado warning at the moment is just down here in southern Missouri. We are watching this storm over here in central southern Kentucky, over by Bowling Green. It has in the past dropped a tornado, still has some weak circulation, however, no longer a tornado warning. Let's actually just check the reflectivity. It has lost its hook echo, which it had earlier, which would be a good signifier for rotation or it being a supercell. So at this point, it seems like the main threat with it is going to be rain, wind, and hail. So, good news for this storm. I feel like the chances of it re-strengthening over here in Kentucky are pretty small. However, we do want to keep an eye on it because it could happen. I don't want to leave it completely out of the question. So let's focus back over here on this southern Missouri storm. Still far away from any radar locations, which makes it hard to tell exactly what's going on. Um, all signs point to there still being some rotation, but we're kind of moving through an area of interference as this purple shows. We're going to be moving into that region soon. But then it should get a lot easier to see what's going on once we get past that. But since we're moving through that area of interference, it's making it pretty hard to tell exactly where the rotation is. But we can see that there is some sort of rotation in this area. And if we look at the reflectivity, it is a pretty strong storm cell. It's small, but it is isolated. And isolated storm cells are usually at the biggest threat for dropping a tornado, or have the biggest risk for dropping a tornado, while these lines of thunderstorms, they don't have, there's too much turbulence, too much interference, not enough energy since it's being sucked up by all these storms to produce any tornadoes or strong tornadoes. The only area in this storm that could potentially, and this is really unlikely, just more of as an example, that could strengthen into a tornado is down here in Bertrand and Minor, Missouri. Since it's at the tail end, it would have the highest chance, but it seems pretty weak, and that risk is low. So we'll move back down here into southern Missouri, near Harville and Neelyville, where there's this tornado warning. The storm does seem to be strengthening. The precipitation is getting heavier. Once again, for anybody that is new into the stream, because the viewer count has fluctuated a lot over the past 20 minutes, I will just explain a couple things. So the left side of the screen shows the storm in Missouri that we're watching currently, and the right side of the screen shows a storm in Kentucky, which previously was tornado warned and dropping some weaker tornadoes. Apologies about that. But in on the right side of the screen, we have the Kentucky storm, which had previously been dropping tornadoes that we will want to keep a watch for. And now I think the main threat here, though, it has weakened a lot and deorganized. I think the biggest threat now is hail, but just to be safe, let's recheck the rotation. And there might be something, but it's very broad and very weak. So chances of any tornadoes moving in here to Bowling Green or Plum Springs or Memphis Junction at the moment is small. especially since this rotation has been weakening over the past, I would say 10, 20 minutes. It's been quite a while since we've seen any strengthening, and the storm structure itself has been deorganizing. So I think that it is safe to say that the storm's tornado threat is probably over. But I will keep the radar up for now, just for the moment. Now moving back over to the left side of the screen, in Missouri, we can continue to watch the storm, which is moving through that area of radar interference, which is going to make it very hard to see what the storm's rotation looks like. The reflectivity seems to be doing okay, so we're still getting a good picture of what the rain is like, but being so far away from any radar stations, it's going to make it hard to get any specific structural visibility on the storm. So my thoughts currently at the moment on this storm is that the chances of it getting much stronger are not large, just because this area that it's going to be moving into has seen a bunch of thunderstorms throughout the day, which would have sucked up a lot of the energy in that area, especially because the thunderstorms earlier in the day, around 5-ish o'clock Central Time, really exploded in strength and sucked up that energy and moisture really fast. So the chances of there being any strong thunderstorms getting like stronger in this region are small. Most likely the storm will just continue throughout this region, maybe having some rotation, maybe dropping a weak tornado at the most, or a decent tornado at like the distant most. But I think generally we will see this storm over time as it moves into 10 o'clock will just be weakening. And I will watch the storm for a few more minutes, but my throat hurts pretty bad streaming and talking about all this stuff, especially after taking a break like I did. I took a pretty long break. Haven't really gotten into the flow of things quite yet. It's really taken a strain on my throat, so I will have to end the stream here in just I would say 5 minutes or so. But I'll keep you guys updated in the meantime. And if the storm does get it does seem to strengthen, then I'll stay on a little bit longer on the stream. But and especially since it's going to be moving into a better zone to see it, see that what the storm structure is like, all that type of stuff. I think once it moves into this area and we see what's going to happen, we can safely say if it will be safe to end the stream or if I should keep going. But since the day seems to be sort of slowing down, I would say, at least in terms of how severe the weather is going to be, or at least the tornado threat, I'll give a little bit of a recap on what has occurred today. So today we've had a few, I think we've had, I would say, 6 storms that have been tornado warned, and 2 confirmed tornado reports. So, or 2 or 3 confirmed tornado reports. So earlier in the day, around 6 o'clock in central southern Missouri, um, where was it? It was around Salem and Eminence. We had a funnel cloud or weak tornado reported. We've had multiple tornado warnings pop up over here in southeastern Missouri. We have one going on currently at the moment, but it's in this area of interference, making it really hard to see what's going on. At the moment, we have this this squall line, this line of thunderstorms that is producing high winds. Let's see how strong those winds are at the moment. So we are seeing 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So and the storm is moving pretty fast, 55 miles per hour. It's moving east that fast. Earlier, somebody in the chat knew somebody at in Paducah, so I will just give an update on what will be going on here in Kentucky since this line of storms is moving in that direction pretty fast. Here in the panhandle of Kentucky, I would call it, in Paducah and Lone Oak, Concord, Heath, Lowe's, Blandville, Bardwell. You guys will be seeing some heavy rain, some strong wind gusts, and maybe some small hail or quarter-sized hail at the biggest. So not great weather, but the tornado threat for this system right here is slim to none. So there shouldn't be too much major damage. The most damage that would happen could maybe be on some weaker homes. Maybe some roof tiling might get blown off. So in this meantime, we will want to keep watching this system here, but general threats for this is just some rain, wind, and hail. Once again, down here we do have a tornado warning that's going on. However, it's in that area of interference, so we can't really see what's going on. I'll move back over to the right side of where the Kentucky storm system is. And earlier we saw a tornado, this storm here, the supercell, drop a tornado over here in Crofton, a weak tornado that did a little bit of damage to I think it seems like a person's home. Some trained meteorologists spotted some damage from a tornado to a carport and some signs. Um, Actually, a little bit of an update here in Kentucky that I have that I'm noticing. These There's a bit of a line of some thunderstorms, some cells of storms here, stretching from Sturgis, Kentucky, eastwards to Beaver Dam, Kentucky, in a line. And I think right here, this seems to be the strongest cell at the moment, uh, just south of Slaughters, Kentucky, near Hanson, Kentucky. We want to watch these for maybe a brief tornado threat, but I think these will probably congeal into a line of thunderstorms that will move northeast maybe and bring some wind and rain. Well, I'm trying to pretty much wait until this tornado warned storm in Missouri moves out of this area of interference so we can actually see what's going on. Because at the moment, as you can see, if we try to see what the rotation looks like here, there's just all this like purple here. It's pretty far away from the radar station, so it's having a hard time picking up we can't really see anything here. So we're gonna have to wait just a few minutes to see if we can get if we can get any updates on whether this tornado warning storm is going to strengthen, or if it's on the weakening trend, or what's going on. All we have to go off of right now is what we can sort of see, which is potential rotation, but with all this interference, it's hard to tell, and a tornado warning that the National Weather Service put out for a radar indicated tornado. Um, Give a little bit of an update over here in Kentucky and Illinois, southern Illinois, far western Kentucky, and now moving out of that southeastern Missouri area. This Boeing line of thunderstorms, the squall line here, that will be bringing some wind, rain, and hail to this region here. We can actually watch it move into Paducah, which is, I think, the biggest city in the area and the suburbs of Paducah and the nearby cities. Uh, Keville is going to start seeing some rain. Heath is in the region next to it. Blandville is going to start seeing some heavy winds and rain. And then over here on the right side of the screen in Kentucky, we are just seeing some of these new cells form up here in this line from Sturgis to Beaver Dam, which will most likely condense into a line of thunderstorms that will bring some heavy wind, rain, and hail. And then down here in Kentucky, with this isolated thunderstorm here that has been on a weakening trend over the past uh, 30 or so minutes, we are just going to be seeing some heavy winds, strong winds, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and quarter-sized hail at this point. And the tornado threat for the storm has pretty much died out, I would say, at least for the meantime. And since the storm has just been weak, has been on this weakening downtrend for so long, the chances of it rebounding at this point are small, especially since it's getting late into the night. The chances of the storm over here in Kentucky, nearby Bowling Green, now over by Richardsville, it's most likely going to just continue on that downtrend and bring some heavy wind, some heavy rains, and maybe some small to quarter-sized hail to the following areas. Let's see if this tornado warning storm has moved into any sort of favorable area for it. It seems to have gotten through that band of interference. The rotation at the moment, it's still far away from the closest radar station, which is over here in Paducah. So, or Paducah, actually, that might be the more accurate way to say it, but it's still far away, so it's hard to tell exactly what the storm is looking like. However, I'm going to say that the rotation here, especially since earlier we were able to see it before it crossed that band of uh interference, you're able to see it had much stronger rotation over here, much heavier precipitation. It seems to be on a weakening trend, and my guess is that it's going to move out of the severe thunderstorm warning and out of this tornado warning here. And once again, just to make sure that everybody's up to date on where the storm is, it is near Brosley, Quillen, and Vegas, Missouri, in the southern portions of Missouri, right on the border of Arkansas. So my guesses are that this storm is going to probably weaken. The rotation does not seem as strong as earlier. The storm itself seems to have weakened quite a bit, and even the base velocity isn't really showing any circulation at this moment. And since it's so far away, it's hard to tell if there's like a hook on the storm or anything. But I would say that the storm is probably going to move out of this tornado warning, move out of the severe thunderstorm warning, and the National Weather Service will probably drop the tornado warning and drop the severe thunderstorm warning, or maybe extend that depending on how heavy the winds are in the storm. But anyways, I think that I'm going to end the stream here tomorrow with tomorrow's severe weather threat, which I can actually, let's see if I can pull that up for you guys. We'll see if if we stream tomorrow, because the severe weather threat is generally in a sort of unpopulated area, I would say. So here, I just took a screenshot off my other monitor. So you can see there is a slight risk for thunderstorms here in central Texas at the Mexico border, and then a large line of marginal risk for thunderstorms here across the southern United States. There is San Antonio is in the risk zone for tomorrow, so we will. If there is some stronger thunderstorms in that zone near where all the population are, I might stream it, just depending on what's going on tomorrow and how strong the thunderstorms are looking. But if not, then the next day of thunderstorms, I probably definitely will stream unless the threat goes down a lot. I'll take a screenshot of that too. So the next day of risks here, so for this would be for Wednesday. It's in the southern United States in Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, a little bit of Texas. And then the next day, for Thursday, the threat is mainly here in Florida. I'll just draw a circle around this. So this is where the risk is for Thursday. So these 2 days, so Wednesday and Thursday, I probably definitely will stream. And tomorrow I might stream. But anyways, I'm going to leave it off here. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And this was a fun stream. It was nice to get back into it. I'm glad that none of these storms really produced any tornadoes, because that could have been bad. Earlier, it was looking like some of these storms were going to produce some strong tornadoes, because especially this one over here in Kentucky, before it moved this far east, it had been looking pretty strong. It looked pretty scary, but luckily, it did not end up producing any big tornadoes, so we got lucky. Thank you guys for watching. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday.